Greetings and welcome to Developing Your Detection Playbook with Security Onion. My name is Josh Brower and I am thrilled to be your instructor for this course. Technology and our increasing use of it in every part of our lives continues to morph and change at breakneck speed. In doing so, new areas of vulnerability and risk come into focus. As defenders, we need to be able to identify gaps in our detections, figure out what data source we can use to create a new detection for that gap, and then go out and actually build that detection and put it into production in our environment. The good news is that Security Onion is built from the ground up to not only give you a deep level of visibility and high fidelity detection, but also to extend those detection capabilities and build out your own detection playbook. That's exactly what this course is focused on, getting you geared up to build a detection playbook within Security Onion using a variety of data sources. Specifically, we're going to start out with an introduction to the platform itself, talk a little bit about how it all works together, as well as how to do just a real quick overview of how to do a distributed install. And then we're going to spend some time talking about how to develop a detection playbook. We'll start off talking through the detection engineering process and how there are three outputs from that process. Those three outputs are the key components of a detection play, and then how you take those plays and operationalize them with Sigma. From there, we'll deep dive into Playbook. Playbook is our application in Security Onion that we're going to be working a bit in this course. And then we're going to spend the rest of the course looking at three different scenarios, three different data sources, Suricata, Sysmon, and Zeek and Strelka. And we're going to run through the detection engineering process and create new detections for each of these data sources in response to a particular scenario. I'm really looking forward to working through this course with you. Let's go ahead and get started with an introduction to Security Onion. When we talk about Security Onion, there are many different aspects to the platform, but they all start at the very bottom with the operating system. We currently support both CentOS and Ubuntu as a base operating system. And the reason we can do that is because from an infrastructure perspective, almost everything within Security Onion uses Docker containers. That allows us to support installations on either CentOS or Ubuntu. Now, if you can imagine, if we have all these different Docker containers and the configurations that go with them, there is a lot of things there that we have to keep track of. And that's where Salt Stack comes into play. Salt allows us to orchestrate and manage all these different Docker containers and the configurations associated with them, along with many other aspects to Security Onion. If you're not familiar with Salt, think of it this way. Instead of writing a big script that goes out and installs Docker and brings up Elasticsearch and all these other things, instead, within a Salt configuration file, we define a state that we want the system to be in. We want Docker to be installed with this kind of configuration. We then point Salt at that configuration file and it applies that state. It goes out and does everything that we asked it to do. And then every 15 minutes, Salt checks to make sure that the system is still within that state that we specified. Besides Salt Stack and Docker, we also have the Elastic Stack. We use Elasticsearch for storing the data, Logstash and FileBeat for shipping the logs, as well as some parsing. We use Redis for queuing up data. We'll see that in a little bit later. And finally, we use Grafana. Grafana is a tool that allows you to visualize different performance aspects to Security Onion. On top of that infrastructure, we have the applications that actually generate the network and host data. The first three, Wazoo, Osquery, and Beats, are our host tools. The other four, Steno, Suricata, Zeek, and Strelka, are our network tools. Now, some of these may be a little familiar to you. Wazoo, a fork of OSSEC, is our host intrusion detection system. Allows you to ship logs from your endpoint and generate alerts based on data that it's seeing. Osquery, another endpoint agent, but a little bit different than Wazoo. focuses more on allowing you to run queries against your endpoint, either live or scheduled, and it allows you to write those queries in a SQL syntax. The final application beats, that would be like Winlog beats or any of the other beats family, from Elastic allows you to ship other different types of logs from endpoints. For our network tools, we have Google Sonographer that we use for full packet capture. We have Suricata that generates alerts based on the network data that it's seeing. We have Zeek, formerly known as Bro, that does a number of things for us, gives us connection logs, generates metadata about the network data that it's seeing. It also extracts files from that network data, which allows Strutcla to run file analysis on them. Strutcla can also use Yara to do some signature matching as well on those extracted files. All right, now that we have this data generated by our network and host tools, let's look at the analyst tools here at the very top that allows us to pivot around to these different data types, as well as, like we're fond of saying, slice and dice it. At the very top, we have the Security Onion Console, or SOC. That is the web interface that allows access to all the other tools here. That includes alerts and Hunt. We also have Elastic Kibana, which allows you to visualize your data using dashboards. We have the Hive, which allows us to do case management. So we'll use SOC alerts or Hunt to actually escalate those alerts or data or different types of logs to a case in the Hive. We also include CyberChef, which has many different tools that are really, really useful for an analyst. Playbook allows you to create detection plays based on Sigma signatures, Sigma rules. Fleet is part of the OS query piece where Fleet by Collide allows you to run live queries or scheduled queries against all of your OS query endpoints. And finally, we have Navigator, which is an application put out by MITRE. Gives us the ability to visualize our coverage for the MITRE ATT&CK framework across our enterprise. All right, so that is a lot of different components and tools and applications that we have running in the platform. Hopefully this gives you an idea of a little bit of how it all works together. Now, if it's not clear yet, or it hasn't been clear yet, every single piece in here is free and open source. And that's one of the reasons why I've used Security Onion in production personally for so many years. It's because it's free and open source. It allows me to get in there and tweak it for my environment, add new components, just make it work for me in my security environment. And I think that's one of the most compelling things about Security Onion as a platform. All right, with this background, let's look at use cases and deployment modes. There's many different ways that you can use Security Onion and a number of different deployment modes. So I just want to walk through them to make sure that we're all on the same page here. The first is forensic analysis. If you want to stand up a small virtual machine and run some forensic analysis using PCAPs or other types of logs that you have, that would be a import node, and we support that. You can easily import that packet capture, and all the network tools and everything related to it will generate alerts. Zeek will generate the data based on that packet capture. All right, so that is a import node. Secondly is an analyst workstation. Now, when you are working through an incident and you're possibly having to actually pull out a packet capture or work with a binary in some way, obviously you want to be very careful that you don't infect the underlying workstation that you're using. That's why we provide a deployment mode that is an analyst workstation. We also pre-install some commonly used tools like Wireshark and Network Miner, and it's based on CentOS 7. Now, these two different deployment modes, you're not actually capturing live traffic. If you want to capture live traffic or ingest live logs, that's where we have the next couple deployment modes. The First one is more for testing, and that's the evaluation mode. This should not be used in production. It is only for evaluation and testing. If you want to actually capture live traffic in production, that's where we have either a standalone or a distributed deployment mode. If you go back to our platform here and you see all these different components, we can either install all of those on one system, that would be a standalone install, or we can install all of these based on their different types on different systems, and that would be distributed. And to be clear from a terminology perspective here, we would say you have a Security Onion grid and it's made up of multiple nodes. So in a distributed environment, you will have different components that you see here installed on different nodes, and they would be part of your Security Onion grid. All right, so it gets a little bit more complex, but that is definitely what we recommend for production use. You can use standalone, but that should only be used in limited environments where you just don't have a lot of traffic that you will be working with. All right, so we come to the single most important piece that I want to talk about, and that is where to get help. All right, it's great that we have this course, and it's great that you can download and install Security Onion for yourself, but you will probably get stuck along the way, and that's very normal, right? So where do you go to get help when you get to that point? First off, if you go to securityonion.net/help, that will redirect you to a page on our documentation website where there'll be all these different resources listed out to guide you in which direction to go. So first off, it'll be our documentation website, docs.securityonion.net, which include extensive documentation about all the different components we just saw, as well as FAQs and other things related to that. If you still need help and you're not finding the answer that you need in our documentation, you can then use our community support forum, which is GitHub discussions, and that link will be on the website or on the page when you go to securityonion.net/help. Finally, if you want more paid support, Security Onion Solutions, we do offer paid support, and again, you can get that information on the page under securityonion.net/help. All right, with that real quick introduction to the platform, let's get started with a Security Onion install and then move on to developing a detection playbook. See you next time.